Imagine walking into a room and before anyone sees you, they know you're there because of a smell that tells a story. In Islam, fragrance is more than just a nice smell. It carries power, spiritual power. It connects us to Allah, to others, and even to our own souls. Today, let's uncover why the Prophet ﷺ loved fragrance and why it's a hidden key to our faith. But what exactly do we mean by smell here? It's not just about the perfume or cologne you wear before Jummah. It's much bigger than that. It's about the whole concept of scent, how it influences us, how it shapes our spirit, and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with this incredible sense. Among all our senses, smell is uniquely powerful. It affects us more deeply than what we see, touch, or feel. And this sense doesn't only work on a physical level, it has a spiritual dimension too. You see, Allah has blessed us with many senses, ways we connect with the world and perceive the reality around us. Sight, touch, hearing, taste, and yes, smell. But among these, smell holds a unique power. It's a sense that often goes unnoticed, yet it influences us more than we realize. A fragrance has a persuasion stronger than what the eyes see, stronger than what the hands feel, even stronger than emotions. It seeps into memory, stirs feelings, and sometimes changes hearts. This sense given to us by Allah isn't just physical, it carries a spiritual weight too. And as we explore this, keep in mind, the scent we carry on our bodies is more than a pleasant smell. It's a reflection of our inner state, a bridge between the physical and the spiritual. Sallallahu alayhi wasallam walked into a gathering, simple in dress, humble in presence. But before people even saw him, they smelled him. A soft, pleasant fragrance that lingered in the air like a gentle reminder, the messenger of Allah is here. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam never refused a gift of perfume, ever. It was well known among his companions, if you wanted to make him smile with a gift, bring him perfume, rich oils, musk, fragrance with depth and warmth. Now today, we often think of perfume as something fancy, something for special occasions. But for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it was part of his daily life. He once said, "If I spent half of my wealth on perfume, I wouldn't consider it wasteful." That's coming from someone who slept on straw mats and gave away most of his possessions. And he wasn't alone in this practice. Imam Abu Hanifa was known for his scent. It's said you could recognize his presence from afar. And even after he had left a gathering, the fragrance remained. Days later, people would still notice it. Not because he was showing off, but because he understood the barakah in it. He was carrying on a sunnah that was deeply rooted in beauty, cleanliness, and presence. This wasn't about vanity. It was about honoring the spaces you walk into, respecting the people around you, and presenting yourself in a way that reflects ihsan, excellence, inside and out. So maybe next time you head to the masjid, bring a little fragrance with you, not to impress, but to carry a trace of a sunnah that the Prophet loved. The power of scent is truly remarkable. It has this unique ability to unlock memories, sometimes without us even realizing it. You might not notice a fragrance until it's gone, and then suddenly it brings back something deeply missed. One of the greatest examples comes from the story of Prophet Ya'qub, Jacob, and his son Yusuf, Joseph. When Yusuf's shirt was placed over Ya'qub's face, it wasn't just cloth touching him, it was the smell of Yusuf. After all those long years of separation, that fragrance carried the presence of his beloved son. The Qur'an tells us, I can smell the scent of Yusuf. There's something deeply moving about that. How a smell can reconnect a broken heart with hope and love. I remember a touching story of a mother who lost her child. May Allah grant her Jannah and comfort her soul. She kept her child's blanket untouched, never washing it, because in that smell lived the memory of her child. Every day that fragrance brought her closer to what she had lost. This shows us how powerful scent is, not just to recall the past, but to keep memories alive in the present. But scent does more than just bring back memories. It sparks the imagination in ways no other sense can. When a believer leaves this world, the angels greet them with glad tidings, mercy, forgiveness, pleasure, and the sweet fragrance of their Lord's bounty. The connection between scent and the soul is undeniable. It transcends the physical, reaching into the heart, the memory, and even the hereafter. Imagine a Lord who is not angry with you, a Lord who is pleased and satisfied with you, a Lord who welcomes your soul with mercy and love. When a believer departs this world, the angels come carrying a khan, a special container filled with the musk of Jannah, the sweet fragrance of paradise itself. This scent is meant to comfort and ease the soul as it leaves the body and begins its journey to the hereafter. The Prophet ﷺ said that when you are laid to rest in your grave, Allah fills that space with the fragrance of Jannah. But this isn't just any ordinary scent. The Prophet explained that the scent of paradise is so powerful, so magnificent, that it can be smelled from a journey of 500 years away. Imagine that. Being on a journey that lasts your entire life, traveling toward that one ultimate destination, and yet the fragrance of Jannah is so strong it reaches you even from 500 years afar. That scent pulls the soul forward with hope and comfort, a promise of the reward to come. Subhanallah, the Prophet often mentioned punishment in connection to being deprived of this heavenly fragrance. In many authentic hadith, he warned that whoever oppresses a non-Muslim living under Muslim protection, whether a Christian or a Jew, or breaks the covenant with them or harms them unjustly, will not smell the fragrance of paradise. The Prophet repeatedly emphasized this point. The scent of Jannah is a blessing denied to oppressors and wrongdoers. This tells us just how extraordinary the fragrance of Jannah really is. It is unlike any scent known in this world. It is not merely a pleasant smell, but a sign of divine mercy and nearness to Allah. It carries meaning beyond our physical senses, reaching the soul and stirring the deepest parts of our being. So as you think about your journey in this life and the path that lies ahead, imagine that incredible scent, the pure heavenly aroma that welcomes the righteous. It's a scent that fills the heart with peace, inspires the imagination, and promises a reunion with the divine that no words can fully capture. Now you might be wondering, why are we talking so much about scent? What's the point? Why does this sense matter so much in our spiritual tradition? Because when you look at the ahadith of the Prophet, you'll notice something profound. Many of them use fragrance as an analogy for influence, as a way to describe the effect a person has on a gathering, or the effect a gathering leaves on a person. It's not about the physical scent alone. It's about the trace, the reminder, the mark that lingers after someone has come or gone. Smell is subtle, it's powerful. And here's what makes it even more interesting. Out of all your senses, sight, touch, hearing, scent is the most difficult to trace back to its source. You can see where light is coming from. You can feel the direction of heat. But a smell, you know it's there, you're affected by it, but you often can't say exactly where it's coming from. If there's a foul odor in a room, it spreads quietly. You sense it before you see anything. And even when you're trying to find the source, it hides itself. The same is true of a sweet scent. You enjoy it, it uplifts you, but its origin may remain unknown. You see this even in the beginning of life. Before a baby is given the ability to see, Allah grants that child the ability to smell. That scent becomes the baby's anchor. The newborn recognizes the mother by her fragrance. But when that scent is missing, even just for a moment, the baby feels lost, anxious, distressed. That connection is deeply wired into us from the moment we enter the world. It's often the same with people. Sometimes you don't realize the comfort and goodness someone brought into your life until they're gone. And that's exactly what scholars bring up when discussing the idea of influence. True impact is often subtle. You may not detect it right away, but the absence of it is unmistakable. And then there's another beautiful comparison, one that Ibrahim alayhi salam and our scholars spoke of. You can tell a real flower from a fake one, not by how it looks, but by its scent. You can shape fake flowers from plastic or fabric, color them, arrange them perfectly. They may look real, maybe even more beautiful than real ones. But the test, the fragrance. True faith is just like that. You can't always judge someone by appearance. A believer's authenticity is not in how they present themselves, but in the quiet, lasting effect of their character. Just like a flower, you recognize what's real by what it gives off over time. Not in a single moment, but in how it makes others feel long after it's been encountered. And that's what the Prophet taught us to become, people of real presence whose influence, like a pure fragrance, lives on. So how exactly did the Prophet understand scent? And how can we carry that understanding into our own lives in a meaningful way? The Prophet didn't just connect fragrance to physical things, he used it as a metaphor for spiritual influence. And one of the clearest examples of this is how he described our relationship with the Qur'an. He sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, the example of the believer who recites the Qur'an and acts upon it is like a citrus fruit. Its scent is pleasant and its taste is sweet. In other words, this is someone whose goodness isn't just on the inside, it radiates. The scent is not deceptive. The outside is beautiful and the inside is just as pure. You see them, you feel their presence, you hear their words, and it all matches. Their heart, their character, their impact, all in sync. Now, if you've ever been to Southeast Asia, you may have heard of the durian, called the king of fruits. It's famous for one reason. It smells terrible, overwhelming. Some people can't stand to be near it. But here's the twist. Those who get past the smell often say it tastes delicious. So yes, the outside might mislead, but the inside carries value. The Prophet contrasts that with the believer who doesn't recite the Qur'an. He said that believer is like a date. It has no scent, but its taste is sweet. The goodness is there. The sweetness exists. But it doesn't spread. It doesn't influence others the same way. There's no fragrance to carry that goodness outward. And here's where it gets even deeper. When the Prophet talks about reciting the Qur'an here, it's not just about reading verses silently in your room. It's about living it, teaching it, embodying its message in your words, actions, and dealings with people. It's about becoming a vessel through which the Qur'an travels to others, not only through your mouth, but through your manners. So ask yourself, is your connection with the Qur'an something that transforms you and those around you? Do people feel the presence of the Qur'an in your life the way they notice the scent of a citrus fruit? Or is your sweetness locked away, good but hidden? The goal isn't just to taste good on the inside, but to carry a fragrance that leaves a trace of divine wisdom wherever you go. So the believer who has iman, who has personal practice but doesn't share the Qur'an with the world around them, what are they like? The Prophet said they're like a date. It has no fragrance, but when you bite into it, it's sweet. The goodness is there, but it's hidden. It benefits the one who consumes it, but its influence doesn't extend beyond that. It's not hypocrisy, it's still sincere, but it lacks reach. Then sallallahu alayhi wasallam described another type, the hypocrite who recites the Qur'an, the one who presents outwardly with piety, who may share the words of the Qur'an and speak beautifully to others, but inside is hollow. And he said, that person is like Basil. Its scent is pleasant, but when you taste it, it's bitter. It smells sweet. It gives off an impression of goodness. But when you truly get close, when you taste what's within, it's harsh, deceptive. The outward presence masks the inner reality. And finally, the Prophet described the most severe of all, the example of the hypocrite who neither recites nor lives the Qur'an is like the colocynth, a bitter desert fruit, no fragrance and a bitter taste. It brings no benefit to itself and nothing to those around it, no outward goodness, no inward sweetness, just bitterness. An empty shell with no trace of divine light. But here's something subtle and profound in the Prophet's words. He didn't mention taste for the believers. Why? Because only Allah knows what's truly inside a person. Only Allah sees the full reality of a person's heart. What we can sense, what others experience, is often limited to fragrance. The influence we leave in the spaces we walk through, the energy and character we share with the people around us. And that's where the analogy of influence comes full circle. The Prophet once said that a righteous friend is like a perfume seller, even if you don't buy anything from them, just by being in their company. The fragrance clings to you. You leave that space smelling better than when you entered. That's the power of righteous companionship. You may not be able to describe exactly what it is, but you feel it. Their influence, their energy, their presence, it stays with you just like scent. So ask yourself, what are you putting into the environment around you? Are you spreading a fragrance of sincerity and goodness, or leaving behind something empty and bitter? And just as important, who are you allowing to shape your scent? Because the people around you, the gatherings you sit in, the voices you listen to, they shape your fragrance too. Sometimes you don't even take on the exact actions of a righteous person. You don't memorize what they memorized. You don't fast the way they fast. You don't pray the way they pray. And yet just by being near them, you benefit. I may not be one of the righteous, but I love them. And maybe, just maybe, that love will bring me their company on the day of judgment. Maybe something of their standard, their character, their fragrance will cling to me. Not because I earned it, but because I was close enough that some of it rubbed off. That's the power of good company. Even if you didn't buy the perfume, you walk away smelling like you did. You might not take on the righteous person's exact deeds, but their influence still leaves a mark on you. You start to smell better, internally and externally, just from the company you keep. But the opposite is just as true. The Prophet gave us another example, the blacksmith. If your friend is like a blacksmith, even if you don't buy anything from him, just being around him will leave you smelling like smoke. Ask anyone who's ever hung out with smokers. They didn't light a single cigarette, but when they got home, their parents asked, "Were you smoking?" Why? Because the smell told the story. Their presence spoke louder than their actions. The Prophet said, a person is upon the religion of their close companion. That's not just a casual warning, that's a reality. You surround yourself with people who carry filth in behavior, in speech, in worship, in purpose, and even if you don't do what they do, you start to absorb it. It seeps into you quietly, bit by bit. And here's the scariest part. You might not even realize how bad you smell. You think you're fine until someone else smells you and says, "What is that?" And suddenly you're aware. I've been around garbage too long. That's how bad character works. It's like a scorpion on your back. You don't see it, but someone else might right before it bites. This is why the Prophet emphasized fragrance. Not just as a physical blessing, but as a symbol of spiritual influence. You carry the scent of those around you, whether you realize it or not. So ask yourself, what scent are you walking around with? You might be sitting in a gathering where backbiting is just normal. Everyone does it, mocking others, talking behind people's backs, making sly comments. It's casual, common, unchecked. But then, one day, you sit with a group of people who don't do that. They lower their gaze, they guard their tongues, and they shift uncomfortably when you say something about someone else. They don't laugh at your sarcasm. They don't echo your complaints. And in that moment, something stings. You realize, I've been breathing smoke for so long, I didn't even notice I was covered in it. It's not just about what you say, it's about who you've been around. Their scent became yours, but this works the other way too. There's a beautiful side to this. There's hope in it. Because just as the stench of sin can cling to you, so can the fragrance of faith. There was a night in Medina when a group of travelers from Iraq entered the city. They came quietly, humbly, late into the night. People were curious. Who are these men arriving so silently from far away? The Prophet called out to them. Where are you coming from? They replied. From a deep valley. Something about them stood out. Something spiritual, something invisible, yet unmistakable. The Prophet turned to those around him and said, there's a scent of the Qur'an among them. Why? Because of how they spoke, how they carried themselves, how they answered his questions with ayahs, not just words, not empty speech, but Qur'an. When he asked them, which verse gives the most hope, they immediately recited, "Say, O my servants who have wronged themselves, do not despair of the mercy of Allah." Qur'an 39:53. They didn't just know the Qur'an, they were shaped by it. And you could tell without needing to be told. This is what it means to carry a scent of the Qur'an, to have hearts soaked in revelation, words guided by divine speech, behavior softened by the remembrance of Allah. It lingers like a fragrance and it reaches others even when you say nothing at all. So what's the environment you're walking in? What kind of people are you sitting with? What scent are you starting to carry? Because over time, you begin to smell like the company you keep. The Prophet once asked, what is the most decisive verse in the Qur'an? And someone replied, whoever does an atom's weight of good will see it, and whoever does an atom's weight of evil will see it. Qur'an 99:7-8. A powerful answer. And what struck the Prophet wasn't just the verse, it was the way these people were answering. Every question he asked, they responded with the Qur'an. It wasn't forced, it flowed, it was natural. You could tell these weren't just people who had memorized verses, these were people shaped by the Qur'an. The Prophet paused, reflected. Then he said, I wonder, is Ibn Mas'ud among you? They said, yes, he's right behind us. And subhanallah, he knew, he could sense it. There was something about this group, something fragrant, something beautiful. He didn't see Ibn Mas'ud first, he sensed his influence. That's the depth of impact that a sincere, righteous person can have, not just on individuals, but on an entire gathering. The Prophet went to him, embraced him, because this was a man whose entire life was shaped by the Qur'an. And the people around him, you could smell it, not literally, but spiritually. You could see the Qur'an flowing through their speech, their adab, their answers. That's the kind of company that lifts an entire group. Even those who haven't memorized the Qur'an themselves. And now, let's flip that same analogy. Just like fragrance spreads, so does stench. Especially the stench of fitna. Most of the time, a community conflict doesn't start with everyone. It starts with one or two people. But over time, the smell spreads. The anger spreads. The suspicion, the whispering, the slander, it all multiplies. And then one day you walk into a community torn apart by chaos and you wonder, where did this even begin? You don't know who lit the match, but you can smell the smoke everywhere. That's the nature of toxic influence. It doesn't always reveal its source. Sometimes the people spreading the worst fitna are no longer even present, but their influence remains like a foul scent clinging to the walls. And this is why the Prophet's example matters so much. He didn't just teach us about scent in a literal sense. He taught us that character has a smell, Qur'anic living has a smell, companionship has a smell, and that scent, whether pure or putrid, spreads. So again, ask yourself, who's shaping your fragrance? Who are you shaping in return? Because sometimes just one sincere person can lift an entire gathering, and one corrupt soul can poison an entire space. And sometimes, in the middle of all the noise, the drama, the tension, you pause and ask, who started this? Who dropped the spiritual stink bomb into this gathering? Who turned hearts against each other? Who planted the seed of this conflict? But you can't find them, because just like with any stench, the source of the smell disappears, but the odor stays. You walk into a space full of tension and whispers. You don't know who caused it, but you feel it. The harmony is gone. People are on edge. Groups have formed. Hearts have closed. And all you know is something has gone horribly wrong. The Prophet warned us about this kind of person, not necessarily a liar, but someone who quotes others just to spark discord. He listens quietly in one gathering, hears someone say something about someone else, and then he goes to the other person and says, "Hey, did you hear what he said about you?" Just like that, a spark turns into a fire. Resentment grows, trust dies, groups form, sides are taken, and people who once prayed side by side now barely look at each other. All because one person decided to carry words like poison. An imam once said, 1 hour of gossip can create a fitna that lasts for months. One forwarded message, one misinterpreted post, one toxic comment whispered at the wrong time. And now a whole community is divided. People stop saying salam to each other. Suspicion becomes default, and no one can even tell where it started. That's the terrifying power of fitna. It spreads silently. It attaches itself to everyone, and just like a foul smell, it clings to the walls long after the person who caused it has left. You walk into a masjid and feel it. This place doesn't smell right, not literally, but spiritually. Something's off. There's tension in the air. People are guarding themselves instead of loving one another. The room feels heavy, unclean. And so we ask, Ya Allah, protect us. Protect us from being the one who spreads it. Protect us from the results of it. Because it only takes one person to make a whole space reek of conflict and spiritual decay. But here's the other side. It also only takes one person to bring light, to bring peace, to restore the fragrance of brotherhood. So may Allah never make us the source of fitna, and may He always make this masjid and our homes and hearts smell sweet. Not with incense or perfume, but with sincerity, unity, love, and truth. That's why the Prophet often described influence using the analogy of fragrance, because its source is hard to pinpoint, but its effect is undeniable on the side of goodness. One of the most beautiful examples comes from Imam al-Shāfi rahimahullah. He once said, "I wish that all people would benefit from my knowledge, but that not a single one of them would attribute it to me." He didn't want his name in lights. He didn't seek status or recognition. He wanted to spread a sweet scent, a legacy of knowledge, goodness, and sincerity that could reach hearts across the world, even if no one ever knew where it came from. And because of that sincerity, Allah elevated him. His name did spread, but not because he chased it, because he didn't. And this is a lesson for all of us. Sometimes the most powerful people are those whose names you never hear. The ones who spark a wave of goodness behind the scenes. The ones who change lives through a quiet word, a small gesture, a sincere dua. You can be far more influential when your goal isn't to be known, but to simply benefit others. There's even a saying, you can be much more influential when people are unaware of your influence. It's true, the architects of goodness and sometimes the architects of evil work quietly. And that's what makes them so powerful, because when you're not focused on being seen, your work reaches further, it travels lighter, it lingers longer. Even the Prophet, the most influential man in human history, carried much of his power through private moments. The influence that changed hearts and built nations wasn't always in public speeches. It was in how he treated people, how he forgave, how he listened, how he carried the Qur'an in his actions. And just like the baby who misses the scent of his mother before her face, sometimes you don't recognize the source of good until it's gone. The masjid felt warm, the community felt united, the hearts felt at ease. And then one day, it changes. Because the source of that sweet scent, the person who carried it, has moved on. You only notice it after the fragrance disappears. So ask yourself again, what scent are you leaving behind? Not just today, not just with your friends, but in the gatherings you walk through, the words you speak, the hearts you touch. Are you building a fragrance of Barakah that spreads quietly even if no one remembers your name? Because the right kind of scent doesn't need to be announced, it simply lingers. The Prophet once said, if my sins had a smell, no one would sit next to me. If my sins carried a stench, no one would want to be near me. Then he was asked, how do the angels know when a person is about to do good or evil? He explained that when someone is on the verge of performing a good deed, they emit a sweet fragrance like musk that draws the angels near even before the action happens. But when a person is about to commit a sin, they give off a foul stench that pushes the angels away, making them avoid that person before the sin even takes place. Subhanallah, this is a powerful reminder for us all. So ask yourself, if your presence had a scent, what would it be? What kind of influence do you leave behind? Do you carry the fragrance of goodness through your words, your actions, your presence that uplifts and benefits those around you? Or do you leave a bad odor that causes others to recoil or keep their distance? This is why the Qur'an, the Sunnah of the Prophet, and the wisdom of the Salaf emphasize the reality of our unseen influence. Because in the end, the true scent of our character will always be revealed, whether good or bad. You can mask greed, you can cover up flaws for a while, but like a bad odor, the true nature of what's inside eventually emerges. It will rise, it will show itself whether in light or in darkness. So dear brothers and sisters, next time you prepare to step into the masjid, a gathering, or even your own home, pause for a moment. Think about the scent you carry, not just on your skin, but in your heart, your actions, your words. Are you leaving behind a fragrance of kindness, faith, and mercy? Or are you unknowingly spreading a scent that pushes others away? Remember, the Prophet taught us that fragrance isn't just physical. It's spiritual. It's the invisible mark we leave on the world around us. Let us strive to be the sweet scent that comforts, uplifts, and draws people closer to Allah. Because ultimately, the best legacy we leave is not in what people say about us, but in the goodness they feel from our presence. May Allah bless us with a fragrance that never fades, a fragrance of Iman, of love, and of peace. Ameen.